Oh, you damn right. Recruiting never stops. So let's get you the recruiting hour once again. Welcome in. Thank you all for liking, subscribing, getting your notifications. Jump into the comments if you like. And we're talking recruiting. We're going to hit some Felix Ojo updates right at the beginning. Going to hit some other big names too for some of the most highly recruited guys in the country. So let's get to it. That, of course, is Jason Sukamel. I'm Chad Hastings, and the sponsor every week of the recruiting hour is the Longhorn Wealth Management Group. Shout out to John and his crew at Longhorn Wealth. Proud Texas Ex's life member, as we've told you. Wife, 6 siblings. They're all UT grads. He's always pumped about Longhorn stuff. And while John looks at the deep snapper and backup quarterback, not necessarily setting the recruiting boards on fire, Sark's efforts to continue building out the team and prepping for a championship run in 2025 is always appreciated. See how John worked in the championship mention. Similarly, John wants to help all Orange Bloods Live fans continue building out their own financial plans to achieve a championship retirement by offering a free 90-minute private consultation with John to learn how working with a certified financial planner can help you maximize your wealth, minimize your taxes, and ensure your legacy. So you can either call John and the Longhorn Wealth team at 972-707-4900 or go online to longhornwealth.net. Schedule that free 90-minute consultation. Thanks to Longhorn Wealth Management Group for being a great partner here.
And you mean John wasn't like waiting around Friday night on bated breath for that deep snapper commitment? Come on, John.
Hey, you know what? John's following those deep snappers. I'm sure he had a list, right? I'm sure he had them on a dry erase board ready to roll. But that did happen in the last week or so. And the Longhorns are keeping covering all bases.
I guess we should probably talk about that. We didn't really have that on our board to talk about in this recruiting hour, but they did get a commitment, right? So
that's true. I guess
Todd O'Neill, I feel like I should at least address it for a minute. But yeah, he's a guy, Chad, Trot O'Neill, out of Prestonwood Christian Academy up in Plano. A little bit, he's a deep snapper. I get it. We're not going to spend a lot of time, with all due respect to Trot, but he's a guy Texas brought in as an invited guest to multiple recruiting events. So they saw something they liked. They did something similar with Lance St. Louis a few years ago. He's been a multi-year starter, so they seem to think Trot O'Neill could come in. Lance St. Louis will be a senior next year. So Trot O'Neill could come in and be a multi-year starter for him at deep snapper. There is, I don't have his name handy, but there's one walk-on guy he'll have to battle with. But, I mean, he's 6'2", 235. He's a good-sized kid. When I first saw him down on campus, I was like, what is this guy, like a defensive end or something like that, tight end? But he's a deep snapper. Ranked very highly as far as deep snappers go. So, we're being silly. Hey, I know deep snappers aren't quarterbacks, but I mean, this guy could legitimately be a 3-year starter for Texas or something in a very specialty role. But, congratulations to Trot O'Neill. In talking to him, you hear kids say like, that was a dream come true. This really was a dream come true for Trot O'Neill to be a Texas Longhorn. So congratulations to him.
Yeah, it's got to be awesome for him. Scully's a Scully, right? That's very cool. Cool deal. Also, we'll see how Matthew Caldwell fits into things. The quarterback that was at Troy last year, he's well-traveled. Jacksonville State, Gardner-Webb, Troy. Now he's in the SEC. Now that's moving on up right there. Matthew Caldwell, is he being brought in to maybe push Trey Owens a little bit? Is it about KJ Lacey? Is it about all three of those guys mixed together? We'll find out in terms of the battle for QB2. But Matthew Caldwell, another name for this week. Jason, it feels like Felix Ojo's name is the name for every week. And this particular week, he continued his official visits. He's already gotten these things cranked up. This week, he hits a high-profile spot because when a picture of you and Dion goes out, that tends to be a big deal. So let's talk about Felix Ojo. You had a chance to speak with him after he visited Boulder.
I did, yeah. I don't know if you can pull that picture while I'm talking, but when I saw that picture with him and Deion Sanders, I'm like, he makes Deion look small. And Deion's not a huge guy by any means, but it's a reminder of how big Felix Ojo is. And I remember when I'm talking to Felix, it's like me holding my microphone up like this. So, I mean, he's a legit 6 in that 6'7" range. But, Felix is interesting. He's already taken 3 official visits. Okay. He went to Ole Miss like the first weekend of early April. Then he went to Texas Tech, kind of an out of the blue Texas Tech visit, just came out of nowhere. And then he visited Colorado last weekend. I wrote about him a little bit ago. He's still got, I think he's taken 3. I think he has 5 more official visits to take. Right, he's got 2 in May and then 3 in June, including Texas, of course, in June. So, yeah, Felix is getting his money's worth out of those official visits, but he really is. I mean, he might be, if he takes all 8 of those visits, he might set the record in terms of guys I've covered. It used to be you could only take 5. Of course, now you can take more than 5, but most guys still only take 4 or 5 visits. But so if he takes 8, that's pretty impressive. We'll see if he maybe tires out at the end of it. But he did visit Colorado last weekend. I did talk to Felix. He was kind enough. He actually called me last night. And so just kind of picked his brain on that visit. In the thing about Colorado, he said, hey, the thing that stood out to him the most was like, oh my gosh, it's like the most beautiful visit he's taken. I mean, you got the backdrop of the mountains, and I'm sure the weather was amazing and everything about that. So, he said, hey, I enjoyed talking to Deion Sanders, hearing their perspective of how I would fit in their offense. But the thing that he first mentioned that stood out was the scenery and how beautiful a place it was. With Ole Miss, he mentioned, hey, I really enjoyed talking to the players, connecting with the players at Ole Miss. Again, hearing how he had fit in. The one I'm watching on this, Chad, and I'm writing about this in my rumor mill. It'll be out on Wednesday as well. He said, hey, the Texas Tech visit, he said they're all pretty even, but he really liked the facilities at Texas Tech. Said, hey, they told him they have the biggest facilities in all of college football. And I said, someone fact check that for me. But I did talk to someone at Texas Tech, and they're like, yeah, well, if you combine these 2 buildings as one, yeah, it's true. So, but don't sleep on Texas Tech in this race, okay? And I'll have my recruiting board out on Thursday. I'm still going to have Texas as the leaders, but my percentage is coming down. It came down a little bit last week. It's going to come down a little bit more this week. Where it's probably going to be like 55% Texas versus the field. The reason why he's taking these official visits, right? So those other schools have kind of, some recency bias. Maybe they got some momentum built up there. Texas Tech, they've got deep pockets out there in Lubbock. They do. They got some pretty big donors that are willing to step up and try to swing for the fences in this particular recruiting cycle. Felix Ojo, I think, is probably the top player on their board. That visit came out of nowhere. He was supposed to be there, and all of a sudden, boom, he pops up. He's going to Texas Tech. I'm not saying Felix Ojo is going to wind up being a Red Raider, but if they make him a deal that's just, I don't say too good to pass up, but if they make him a deal that's so much better than everybody else's in terms of NIL opportunity, you got to at least consider it in today's day and age, don't you?
Wow, that's a wild thought. Yeah, and obviously people are going to think of NIL too. I think when they see him and Deion. By the way, to your point, Jason,
I don't think Colorado there you go. Thank you.
Yes, this is what Jason's talking about. Deion is not a small man, but he does look a little small next to Ojo.
Yeah, he comes up to about maybe his chin, right? So he's a big dude, man. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah, in chat, I'm not just saying these things. Anybody who's followed me in my reporting for 2+ decades, I don't just throw crap out there just to throw crap out there. I'm talking about Texas Tech for a reason, okay? I'm just telling you, I think Texas Tech's a legitimate player in this one all of a sudden.
It really is going to be interesting to see. We talked about this plenty of times, but as we move forward with this version of the SEC and the Big 12, how does Texas Tech fit in? They've seemed to be active in the basketball side of NIL. How active will they be in football? It's going to be interesting because now the shadow
in the transfer portal, I believe they're pretty active.
Yeah, because the shadows of Texas and Oklahoma now are different, right? That those 2 shadows are being cast somewhere else, and maybe Tech can take advantage of that. So Felix Ojo, Ole Miss, Tech, Colorado, the official visits. And you, just to reiterate, Jason, you said by the end of it, we may be looking at 6 to 8 for him?
Yeah, he's got Florida in 2 weeks. Then he goes to Ohio State the last weekend of May. And then in June, it's Michigan, then Texas, then Oklahoma. So, yeah. So 5 more still. He's still got a full slate of official visits. He's already taken 3. Wow. He's still got five remaining to take. So.
And he's a June 13th guy, correct?
For Texas, June 13th.
June 13th, official visit to Texas for.
It's going to be really interesting, Chad, when he visits Texas. And you're right. You think of Deion, you think NIL, but Colorado can't match what like Texas Tech or Texas are going to do. Maybe Michigan. It's going to be really interesting if those conversations happen at Texas, at Michigan, at Oklahoma, at Ohio State. Does he look at that and say, okay, that number and these other numbers are not even in the same stratosphere? What does that do for his recruitment? I don't know, but it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and we'll certainly be following it right here. And, of course, at orangebloods.com. Let me flash up the QR code for you. Great content up there, including Jason's 3-2-1 article, which we're going to dig into a little bit in this show. But obviously, we can't hit every single element of it. There's a lot of really good stuff in there. The Everything Everywhere All at Once article is out there as well. If you haven't checked out the new Rumor Mill article, Truth and Lies, it is all there every week, giving you the very latest in recruiting. So check it out, and that is your QR code if you want to go ahead and scan that. All right, Jason, speaking of the 3-2-1, right there at the top, the three that you deal with. We're going to hit them in this show. Let's start on the offensive side with a commit. He is an LSU commit as we are speaking about him. Jabari Mack, we've talked about him before, top 10 rated wide receiver in the whole country. Right now it's LSU as the commitment. What's the update in terms of is Texas out of this thing, or is there still a shot?
Yeah, it was a little odd leading off my column with an LSU commitment, right? And frankly, if I would have talked to Felix Ojo earlier in the evening, I probably would have let him be led off with him, but I didn't talk to Felix till about 9:30 last night. But Jabari Mack, okay, wide receiver from Destrehan, Louisiana, committed to LSU. Jabari's interesting because earlier in the spring, like I talked to him, he's like, yeah, Texas and Texas A&M are my top two. And then I saw him back in April at a 7-on-7 tournament. He kind of backed off that. He said, nah, I'm looking at those two. I'm looking at LSU. I'm looking at Ohio State. He kind of said it's kind of even among those. And then literally like a week and a half later, boom, out of the blue, he commits to LSU. Well, I asked him, I said, what made you kind of move so quickly on that LSU commitment? He goes, I was going to wait, but I just thought the time was right. Well, I think I kind of know what it is. LSU now has 4 wide receiver commitments. Tristan Keys, a 5-star receiver, had just committed right before Jabari. So Jabari's like, oh, I better grab my spot. So he went ahead and committed to LSU. Now, to answer your question, is Texas in or out? They're still in it. He is going to take his Texas official visit. He told me he's got that scheduled for June. Let me make sure, Chad. I believe it's June 13th. It's hard to, June. Well, it's got the 14th, but June 13th, he's coming in for his Texas official visit. He said he's probably still going to take A&M and Ohio State. He was a little unsure of those, but he definitely said he's going to take specifically, he told me to take that Texas official visit. I said, okay. What makes you want to, keep in contact with Texas, keep visiting Texas? He said, it's Chris Jackson. It's Steve Sarkisian. It's their offense. They tell me I can move all around the field. I can play outside. I can play in the slot. I can do different things. It's their development. And then ultimately I said, okay, well, let's fast forward. I mean, what would Texas have to do, or anybody, A&M, Ohio State, to get you to ultimately reconsider and possibly flip your commitment? And he didn't have an answer for that. And, he just kind of said, I don't really know. I'll just know when the time comes if it hits me. So, I think if I'm a betting man right now, Chad, I think probably he sticks with LSU. He's an in-state guy. He committed early and quickly for a reason. But, if Texas sells him on hey, dude, you can be our number 1 receiver in this class. You can be our, next Matthew Golden, our next Xavier Worthy, our next whatever, Ryan Wingo, when he moves on. I mean, you can be that kind of player for us. Well, then Texas has a chance. But right now, he seems pretty happy with that LSU commitment, despite still going to take other official visits.
Interesting. So keep an eye on that. And as of right now, does he have an official set for Texas?
It's that June 13th weekend.
It's 13th as well. Okay. All right. So that's one of the, there's so many reasons.
Let me see. I'm sorry. Yeah, LSU gets him the last week, that June 20th.
Okay.
So LSU, the way things stand right now, will get the last crack as far as official visits. So even if Texas, knocks it out of the park, LSU is going to have a chance to counterpunch there. We'll see. But I mean, Texas has a shot there with Jabari Mack.
Interesting. All right. Up next, we're going to hit a name that is close to my heart. Before we do that, we're going to get something else that's close to my heart, and that is Specs. There's another sale going on at Specs. This time, it's tequila.
It's tequila time. Who's ready for a margarita? Shake things up all month long with discounts on Blancos, Reposados, and Añejo tequila during Specs Tequila Sale.
And that rolls all the way through May 31st. Go get your tequila at Specs. All right, Jason. He is close to my heart because he's from my... What?
Oh, I was just going to say tequila. I made a terrible mistake last night. So this is so random. It's not recruiting related, but my youngest daughter is 13 years old. And last week she competed in a gymnastics meet. It was like this big regionals meet. She had to qualify and go to state, blah, blah, blah. But she qualified and she went up to Hot Springs, Arkansas. Well, I wasn't able to go because I had to cover a rivals camp. So my wife drove her up to Hot Springs. She did really well, blah, blah, blah. She comes home and I said, so I hadn't seen her since in like 4 days. I said, hey, let's go out to dinner last night and celebrate your accomplishment. Well, we made the mistake of trying to go to Chewy's. I'm like, what in the hell? Cinco de Mayo, Chad. I was like, oh, no. Yeah, I didn't even think of I was like, okay. So then we went somewhere else and we still had to wait for like an hour, dude. And I'm like, oh, a non-Mexican food restaurant, mind you. So, I need to be up to speed on my Cinco de Mayo calendar for next year.
Mexican food places on Cinco de Mayo. You definitely want to get there early. Definitely want to make sure you're getting there early. All right. So this next guy, as we mentioned, Jason, close to my heart because he's from my hometown. He's a Waxahachie Indian. A Waxahachie Indian is the #1 ranked safety in all of America, according to Rivals, as we are talking today. Jaquan Snell is his name. What's the update?
And I like that you have now trained me that it's Waxahachie, right? Because normally I say Waxahachie, but no, you've broken me down and Waxahachie, right? So
there you go.
Is it Waxahachie or Waxahachie?
Waxahachie. It's a hatch. Like a hatch. Yeah.
Jaquan Snell, you're right. #1 ranked safety. What is he? 13th ranked player overall in that 2027 class. We're talking 2027 player. I saw he was out at the Rivals camp this week. Waxahachie actually had a pretty good group of players out there. He didn't participate. He's got a real slight hamstring tweak, but he was nice enough to come out there and just kind of show his face, and I got to talk to him. First off, let me say this. Great player, obviously, right? But, I mean, he is a fantastic human being. I'm a big fan of Jaquan Snell after I've gotten to talk to him a couple times. I actually talked to his coaches were out there. And I was like, hey man, I just talked to Jaquan. I was like, dude, that dude's impressive. And they're like, yeah, like I don't know what he's ranked as a player, but he's a 5-star human being. And no, I believe he's pretty amazing, man. So, but the latest is, he did visit Texas in April. He's pretty open. I mean, Jaquan is really open. He wants to get out this summer and hit some out-of-state schools. I'm trying to find which one he said. Oregon, Ohio State, Tennessee. Those are some schools he wants to visit this summer. I asked about the Texas visit. And he goes, man, I loved it. I love the energy. Coach Aquino, just, high energy dude. He's an old school guy, but tons of high energy. And he's like, he's up to speed on the draft. He said they had 23 guys drafted the last 2 years. And I said, hey, how strong of a player? He goes, man, they're up there for me. And he said, the quote, he goes, any school, they had 23 guys drafted. Any school that can have that many kids drafted, if that's a kid's ultimate goal, I don't see why he wouldn't want to go there. So, I don't know that I would call Texas the leader there. Actually, I think I would call Texas the leader, Chad, but it's so early. I hate to stick my neck out too far. There's some rumblings. Obviously he's going to see these out-of-state schools, but there's some rumblings that he might be a guy that probably leans towards staying a little bit closer to home. So Texas A&M's involved there. SMU's involved there. So, I think Texas is in a really good spot for Jaquan Snell, but it is really early. I mean, he's got a long way to go. He's got a lot of visits to take. So there'll be a lot of movement, but I don't know that there's a school I'd put above Texas right now.
Interesting. Let's make sure we're clear about that. I may not have said it, but as we go through these guys, Felix Ojo, who we talked about, class of 26, Jabari Mack, class of 26, but Snell is 27, correct, Jason? At least for now. We've talked about some reclassifications, but he is a 2027 kid, correct?
He is 2027. I haven't heard any talk of him reclassifying, but like you said, hey, that seems to happen more and more frequently now, right? So
yeah, that'd be wild if the #1 safety decides to reclassify. But
he's a 6'3", 180. I mean, he's a legit problem. I don't think they took heights and weights on Jaquan this weekend, but he's a good-looking player, and like I said, he's impressive. Just very mature, just handles himself well with the media. Like I'm a big Jaquan Snell fan.
It's good to hear. Good to hear that somebody from the hometown doing well. Get people saying good things about Waxahachie, because I certainly have not done my part for that. So, Jaquan, you got to make up for all that I'm doing out here. Staying on the defensive side, Jason, and staying with a 2027 guy. Let's talk about Zayn Row. We have talked about him before on the recruiting hour here from Denton, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Denton Geyer. And I don't know that we're staying on the defensive side of the ball because he also plays tight end. He worked out on both sides of the ball at the Rivals camp. Okay. He's going to be at Texas. I think it's May 12th. He's going to come down for an elite camp. He's not planning on working out, but he goes, hey, I want to go down there and talk to the defensive coaches, and I want to talk to Jeff Banks, because he said most schools are now kind of recruiting him as an athlete. So Zayn's an interesting dude, like in a good way. He shows up at every camp. He's always there. This guy is not afraid to compete, and I love that. I love that about Zayn Row. He's at every Under Armour camp, Rivals camp. He's at 7-on-7 deals. I mean, you have a camp, you invite him, he's probably going to come out there and compete and get the work in. So, Zayn was a very early Oklahoma commitment. He backed off that pledge. I don't have the dates on that in front of me. I'm sorry, but he was a one-time Oklahoma commitment, backed off that pledge. He's now said, hey, I'm just kind of slowing things down because I don't want to have to decommit again from another school. So I want to make sure I make the right decision. Oklahoma is very much in play there. There's still a factor, but I think Texas is in a pretty good spot there. He said schools that are standing out. He didn't mention Oklahoma to me. I think that was just a bit of an oversight. He listed Georgia, Texas, SMU again. There we hear SMU, Nebraska, and Texas A&M. I think you could put Oklahoma in there as well. So, he's going to take his time. He actually just visited Nebraska. I think it was last weekend, maybe 2 weeks ago. Like I said, he'll be in Austin in about a month from now. So, taking his time, doesn't want to rush into a second commitment, wants to make sure he does it right the second time. I think Texas is a very strong player in that race for Zayn Row.
It's interesting. So, Jason, obviously, we just saw Travis Hunter do what he did. You think in 2026, 27, can you go the Zayn Row path if you want? Could you go DN tight end? Would they let you do that at the college level?
I don't think so. That would be tough because at DN, you're going to try to bulk him up so much. We talked about Jalen Lott on the modcast, I think, maybe. Or no, I think I talked about him with Anwar's show on Tuesday morning. Jalen Lott, maybe he's a corner DB, right? And he actually visited Colorado last weekend, Travis Hunter, blah, blah, blah. So, maybe that was the modcast. Chad, everything's blurring together. But, that one makes a little more sense, a wide receiver DB. I mean, Dion did it to some degree, right? Because those skill sets kind of carry over a little bit. Tight end and defensive end, that'd be awfully tough. So I think he'll ultimately settle on one. I think it'll be defensive end when he actually settles on one.
Gotcha. There you go. Zayn Row. Also, as we mentioned in the 2027 class, and a defensive end there, number 5 D end, as I see him rated here by Rivals. So we'll keep an eye out for that. Got one more name that we want to hit, and it's actually a Texas commit. Jason's got an update on Chris Stewart coming right up. But before we do that, let's remind you once again about the recruiting hour. It's brought to you by Longhorn Wealth Management Group. We've told you about John and how he gets around. He served for 15 years as the Dallas, Texas Exes chapter board member. Now he's helping build out the Collin County, Texas Exes chapter. But that's not all. John's looking forward to hearing about, of course, exciting recruiting developments. Coaches are headed out, he knows, to scour high school practices in May. Likewise, John was just out and about in New York City last Friday, scouring the floor of the New York Stock Exchange for investment opportunities and strategies. So he recommends all Orange Bloods Live fans take the time now, scour over your own financial plans with the aid of a free 90-minute private consultation with John. Learn how working with a certified financial planner can help you understand the various investment and planning strategies and solutions that can help you maximize your wealth, minimize your taxes, and ensure your legacy. To take advantage of the free 90-minute consultation, either call John and his team at 972-707-4900 or go online to longhornwealth.net. Schedule your meeting with John today. He always sends along a big hook'em, and I know he's excited to hear the update on Chris Stewart. So this is a Longhorn commit, Jason, already. And this has been It was a while. Is this the first name? Was he the first one in 2026?
Yeah, he committed in June of last year, so it's almost been a full year he's committed. Yeah. So.
All right, now let me see if I can do the second part without looking. Is he a Shadow Creek guy?
Yeah, yep, Pearland Shadow Creek. That's right.
There we go. All right, give me the update now that I got that right.
Well, you know, I got kind of lucky, if I'm being honest, with Chris Stewart. See, he was supposed to visit SMU on an official visit last weekend.
Okay.
And I'm looking, and I'm like, man, nobody has reported on Chris Stewart. Well, nobody reported on Felix Ojo's Colorado visit either. So I called Chris last night, and Chris is great. He always takes my calls. So I said, hey, you visited SMU last weekend? He goes, no, actually I had to cancel it because he was on the 4x200 relay for Shadow Creek that ran in the UIL state track meet last weekend. A track meet I was going to go to, by the way, but just the weather created so much havoc, and my wife being gone, with my other daughter, I had to get my other blah, 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 blah. So I didn't get to go down to the track meet. So I kind of slipped my mind that he ran. I said, oh, man, I forgot about that. Well, it actually worked out well for Texas. Not only did he cancel the SMU visit, and he's probably going to reschedule, I need to say that, but while he was in Austin for the track meet, he was able to go over and meet with Chris Jackson, the Texas wide receivers coach. And let me tell you why that's important, okay? Earlier this spring, when I would talk to Chris Stewart, he kind of had some doubts about, hey, am I still a priority for Texas? Like, am I going to be in this class? How much am I wanted? Well, I think some of those concerns have been eased because Chris Jackson went to see him at his school last weekend. Jackson, I said, so Chris Jackson wasn't working on whatever day. I'm assuming he came up just to meet you. And Stewart goes, yeah, I think so. So Chris Jackson, came up to campus to meet with Chris Stewart. They had a good meeting. So I think Chris Stewart feels pretty good about his Texas commitment. Now, here's the deal. He is still going to take other official visits, including SMU, Arizona State. He's going to take he's got his Texas visit for June 20th, actually. Miami is in there to get a visit. He's got a brother who's also in the 2026 class. They're not twins. People mistake that. His brother's a defensive back. They want to play together in college. Well, that hasn't really been discussed at Texas. Arizona State and SMU are the two main ones that are offering that opportunity. So how is that dynamic going to work out? I don't fully have the answer yet. Could his brother maybe come in as a preferred walk-on, maybe try to earn a scholarship? I guess that's certainly possible. But SMU and Arizona State have offered his brother. So, yeah, that dynamic is still kind of unsettled, but he does feel valued, I think, by the Texas coaches, feels wanted, feels like they want him in this class. They've told him as much. So I think this last weekend was productive for Texas on that regard. Now you just got to figure out what's going to happen with these other visits and possibly with his brother, wanting to play together.
Jason, reading through your notes on it just reminds me this really is a relationship building thing. Like they say about relationships, sometimes you have to work at things and whatever. But in reading his comments, because I think you can read it one way and almost think, wait, is he talking about like NIL when he talks about Texas showing him love or whatever? It's like, no, it's the old school version. It's like, just show me a little attention. Am I important to you? I'll try to show you that you're important to me. Like it really does. You can feel the relationship part of it as you're reading through the Stewart quotes.
And that's funny you say that, because when I posted that on Orange Bloods on Monday night, I think it was, people on our message board were like, well, is he talking about NIL? I mean, no, that's not what he means. I mean, just right. There was a brief time there where the communication maybe wasn't as consistent as it had been previously. So he just genuinely wants to feel appreciated and wanted. And I think he's getting that from the Texas coaches now.
Yeah, because it's a weird thing. And I read it at first the same way all those folks on Orange Bloods did. I thought, well, wait a second. He's a commit. If he's committed to Texas, then what else do you need, right? what else do you need him to show you? At first, that's kind of where I thought he was going. I'm glad you clarified it, though, that he was really just talking about some of the general stuff, that he wanted to know how important he is. And you've already mentioned somebody else at the position, Jason. At wide receiver, it's not like they all know, like there's not going to be one usually. You may end up with a couple guys. You may end up with a class of, who knows? Somebody could be looking at a class of 3 or 4. What Texas just brought in 4, right? If you're counting Michael Terry as a receiver. So, right. I can understand how if I'm a guy like Chris Stewart, yes, I was the first commit. And yes, I am a verbal commitment, but you still want to know that, yeah, that the coach is interested, the school is interested. So I get it.
You know, the most interesting thing on Chris Stewart, and that's the most another interesting thing. He actually dropped a few spots in the Rivals rankings that were updated this week. He's still a Rivals 250 guy. He's number 175 nationally, but he dropped from 168 to 175. He's killed it this spring, like up at these OT7 7-on-7 tournaments. I mean, he's been like one of the best players there for like multiple weeks. So I'm like, I don't know what Chris has to do to get his ranking to move the opposite direction, but he should be trending up, I think. So,
yes. And I know one thing, as long as Rivals didn't change that picture, I'm good with it. That's one of my favorite Rivals, like game night, let's go pictures. He's got great
profile picture. Yeah.
The stare. He's just like, he's ready to go. He's sweating and staring like he's ready to kill some. It's awesome. It's fantastic. Ready to go out there and get it done. Jason, before we wrap up, you have mentioned 3 different schools that aren't Texas during this show. And I want to ask you kind of a question about all of them. So we talked about Colorado because Ojo visited. You mentioned Texas Tech along the way. He's also visited there. And you've mentioned SMU a couple times. Mm-hmm. If I give you a buy or sell and I say buy or sell, one of those 3 schools is going to get somebody in this cycle that Sark really, really wants, what would you do with that? Buy or sell?
I'm gonna sell, but okay. But it's a lot. I had to pause and think about that a little more than I probably would have in most years. Because I'm telling you, man, SMU and Texas Tech, and I don't know about Colorado. I don't think they have the resources that Texas Tech and SMU do.
Right.
But those 2 schools, they're going to make some of these big schools sweat a little bit. Okay.
Yeah. I'm noting how many times you're mentioning each of them. And I think SMU just went to the playoff.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, again, back to the argument we made for Tech, Texas and Oklahoma are now out of the way, sort of, right? They're not, because you're not in a conference with them. There's a little bit of a different, I don't know, attack strategy, I guess, that might be there. So I'm keeping my eye on it. That's why I wanted to throw it out there. I think ultimately you're probably right, because Texas is going to be Texas at the end of the day. But I do wonder, somewhere down the line, is there a battle that Sark might lose with one of those 2 schools where he's thinking, really? Did I just lose that one to Tech?
Hey, Chris Stewart could be, we could be talking about Chris Stewart at SMU at some point. I mean, if that's where he and his brother want to go. I mean, Calvin Thomas is a linebacker / edge guy that Texas really wants. And he was at SMU on an official visit last weekend and was really, really impressed. So, you got to take those schools seriously. I mean, yeah, they don't have what Texas has in terms of prestige and just reputation, but NIL can be the great equalizer on a lot of these things, Chad. So
yeah, I was going to say those pockets. They've got pocket. West Texas, they make pockets, and we know there's pockets in Dallas. We know that one. All right, Jason, anything else before we wrap up here on the recruiting hour? We've hit a few of the big names. Anything else we need to hit?
No, like you said earlier, we'll just keep your eye on Orange Bloods. We've got daily recruiting stuff, and we'll have stuff going into the weekend. This weekend, Chad, I'm actually not going to be anywhere covering recruiting, I hope, unless something comes up. But I think it's the first time since January, I said this earlier, that I have either been in Dallas, Houston, down on the UT campus, like all day stalking recruits. So I'm looking forward to this weekend and even more next weekend. Not having much going on, because then things really start ramping up once we get into June. Then it's crazy time again. So.
Jason, I forgot to update you before the show. I'm so sorry. The Steelers called me. They want you to fly out to Pittsburgh and do the one more interview with Aaron Rodgers. Can you do it one more time?
One more interview, yeah.
One more. They're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, sure. I could do that. I would do that.
Yeah. Check out orangebloods.com, as we mentioned, for the 321 article, everything everywhere all at once. Thursday night is always the War Room with all the latest nuggets and bits of info. And if you want, full breakdowns on all the moves going on, even if it's a deep snapper, even if it's a backup quarterback coming in, all that stuff at orangebloods.com. We appreciate you for checking it out. We certainly appreciate Longhorn Wealth Management Group. Shout out to John and the crew. And you see that number right there, 707 4900. Check them out. Thank you guys for checking us out. Check out all the great content at Orange Bloods Live. Like, subscribe, get your notifications, jump into the comments if you like. Maybe if there's something Jason didn't cover, you want to throw a question in the comments, we will try to get to those as well. Until next week, Wednesdays at 10 is when it happens with the Recruiting Hour. We will do it again next week. Thank you all for jumping in. Take care of yourselves. And if you're in the greater Central Texas, Austin area, we hope you're safe and dry, because it's just been raining everywhere. So hope everybody is safe. And remember, ant beds. Ant beds are coming. Once the rain stops, ant beds come out. So it's actually good. I got my pest defense folks coming out tomorrow. It's perfect. It just finished raining. So they know what to deal with. You guys take care, and we'll talk to you next week. This is Orange Bloods Live. See ya.